something that Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google for many years, said. He said, brands are the solution, not the problem. Brands are how we sort out the cesspool. And he was talking about everything that was online and how important a brand and a brand promise is for people that are online, for consumers, so that they can sort through the mess. And so I really like that. But I think the first thing to do is to define what is a brand promise. And so the key point here is that the brand promise is defined by the consumer, not by the company.
Do you find it difficult to focus on your customers and even your own employees as you're juggling numerous vendors? Do you have more meetings with vendors than you can count? And do their reports filled with technical jargon make you feel clueless and frustrated? Such is the story of Nathan. Being at a car dealership, he's concerned about his store's digital marketing presence and invests most of his time dealing with vendors to promote his business and gain more sales and market share. Nathan is busy handling reports and reviewing them, not knowing what is happening on the advertising front and about his true ROI. Poor Nathan is worried but can't figure out a solution until he found BZ Consultants Group. BZ Consultants stepped in and was able to take the digital marketing vendor burden off Nathan's plate, giving him peace of mind that the best interest of the dealer was always top of mind. Being an unbiased third party, BZ Consultants always made sure to relay the reports in easy, relatable, and actionable ways so that Nathan could best utilize the data. Now, Nathan can focus on what he really wanted, the customer experience and growth. By being your digital marketing business partner, BZ Consultants Group will remove the hassle of trying to hold your vendors accountable and increase your productivity with the time you will now have armed with true data. Together, we make it possible because your success is our goal.
All right, everyone, welcome into another Facts Not Feelings. And oh my goodness, I am so excited to have the one and only Alan Krutsch. And for those that did not happen to see my little Facebook Live yesterday, Alan, I don't know if you know this, but you are the one and only singular interview that I have done twice. I have yet to repeat a guest, and you're my first time repeat guest.
Two-time winner.
Hooray. I know. Hooray. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. But, as we were talking beforehand, and we'll get into what we're talking about here in just a second, but as you're going back and I was like looking at, as the conversation progressed, I go, I don't have a headshot for you. I don't have your social links. So it was kind of overdue that we redid this conversation and redid a conversation, because you need the full Facts Not Feelings treatment, because you were with me in like the first days when it was a little rough, those first couple conversations. So thank you so much for being with me, Alan, today. And everyone, what are we talking about? If you can see by the title here, Driving Success, Unpacking the Power of Brand Promise. And I love that you brought this topic to me. So in the world of business and organizations, brand promise can be either the thing that is your Achilles heel or that drives you to success. So what does this exactly mean? What does brand promise mean? We're gonna unpack all this today. So everyone, you know how this works at this point. You know how we work. There is someone out there that needs to hear this, that needs to hear this, tag them, comment with them, share this with them. And with that, Alan, let's get into this a little bit. Let's dive into this a little bit. Talk to me a little bit. For those that weren't in the early stages and had to grow with us, and those that were with us, thanks for being with us this long. We super appreciate it. But let's dive into this a little bit. For those that don't know you, let's start with a little bit about how you got in the industry and where you are today and how you got in to where you are now. And then we'll dive into the meat of this.
Sure. So I've spent time in dealerships. I've spent time doing digital marketing for dealerships, as well as consulting with large dealer groups. And that's where you and I met, Brooke, is when we both had consulting gigs and were working for a large software company and working with the OEMs and franchise dealers. I've run marketing for a couple of dealer groups. Currently, I work for FUSE Autotech. We're a software company that helps dealers sell cars more quickly and more profitably. And I'm the marketing director and director of industry relations. So branding is a passion of mine, obviously, because of my background in marketing. And I love this quote that I'm going to read to you that talks about a brand, particularly in the digital age. And this is something that Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google for many years, said. He said, brands are the solution, not the problem. Brands are how we sort out the cesspool. And he was talking about everything that was online and how important a brand and a brand promise is for people that are online, for consumers, so that they can sort through the mess. And so I really like that. But I think the first thing to do is to define what is a brand promise. And so the key point here is that the brand promise is defined by the consumer, not by the company. So a brand represents the expectations that the consumer holds about the products and the services and the relationship. So brand isn't just the product, it's the services that go with it, and then it's the relationship with either the product and or the people that represent that brand. And so this is what makes it tricky, is that we get to do all the activities, we get to do what is loosely called brand building, brand creation, but ultimately the real brand is in the mind of the people that might choose to use our products or services.
And I'm hoping that everyone just caught on to what you just said there, that so often that we're thinking, okay, we got to build this brand promise. Oh, what is it? And then we think internally, okay, it's X, Y, and Z. Now that's great that you feel that way, but in all factuality is, wait, the consumer is going to demand that. And I love that you said that. And that quote was phenomenal. I've actually never heard that quote. That is a phenomenal quote. So I really hope that everyone just caught on to that go back and look. And when you're saying what is brand promise and how does it shape the customer perception and expectations in the auto industry? Well, you just answered that. I mean, 100%. It's shaped by your customers. It's shaped by your clientele. So let's take a little bit further into how does brand promise influence the internal culture of an organization? And then how does that align with the mission and vision?
Yeah, so I think that a brand promise is a bit of a North Star for an organization, particularly in the communication, but also in the way that you design your activities, your method of doing business. And so if a brand is something that is an expectation held by the consumer, your brand promise says what you're going to do. And then if you fulfill on that, you execute. So I'll be a little self-serving and I'll tell you what our company's brand promise is, and I'll tell you how that affects our actions. So we have a really simple brand promise at FUSE. We make financing a car simple. That is our promise. Now, to deliver on that is 1,000 things. The way you design the software, the way you train people to use it, the way you integrate, the way you deploy. But as we build products, as we communicate, that's always the North Star. Is what we're doing going to make it easy for people to buy and finance a car? Because we know that is, in many cases, a time-consuming, complicated, maybe frustrating experience. So in any business, a retail automotive business, a soft drink business, whatever, if Coke's brand promise is we refresh, the Coca-Cola better be fresh, cold, bubbly, and ready to do its job. Yeah, it's a North Star. That's the way I think of it.
And I would take that one step further, is that so often, and it's not just in our industry, is that a business doesn't even have a mission statement. And so if you don't have a mission statement, how are you going to have a brand promise? I mean, so do you, I know when we first spoke, and if you haven't seen that episode, a little plug, even though it's a little rough around the edges and it has nothing to do with my wonderful guest, that was just like our third or fourth episode. I don't think I had a mic. So it was done in no knock to Zoom, but it was a little rough on it. But I loved how, speaking of mission statement, speaking of mission and vision, that when FUSE got started, it was, and anyone that's heard me speak at any point, I'm always saying work backwards to work forwards. You all literally broke the process down and said, how can we not only best serve the customer, but we're literally going to work all the way backwards, go back to paper, and then go this direction. And so talk a little bit about that. I understand I'm kind of going off script here a little bit, but talk a little bit about that, because how can you have a mission statement if you don't know what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of these things work together: mission, vision, values, brand, etc. So the mission and the vision of a company can be a lot about the organization, about how people work together. Today, when we talk specifically about brand, we're talking about when we deliver our product and service, how does that affect the customer? And brand may not have as much to do with how our internal organization works, even though those things are related. And what I'd like to do is maybe segue a little bit into brand. And I think we'll see that that does affect the organization, that does kind of permutate everything that happens inside of a business. And one of the things that we talk about is how we make a company or a brand special. And one of the things about branding is that this isn't, to borrow one of your phrases, this isn't all about feelings and logos and pretty design and lofty sentiments. And being special, even though special is an emotion, we can break this down into a formula. And so specialness for a brand or a business is based on being different, being relevant, and being familiar. So let me tell you what all of those things mean. So different is only in relation to your competitors. So when you say, hey, what makes our dealership different is that we've been family owned for 50 years. So is every other dealer in the market. So that is not differentiation. It may be nice. It may be something customers care about. I don't know, but don't call it differentiation. Differentiation is only compared to your direct competitors. Familiarity is different than awareness. There is no correlation between awareness and purchase. We're getting into semantics a little bit here. Let me define the terms. Awareness means I know you exist. I've heard of you. Seen your logo. I heard somebody talk about you. Familiar means I know a little bit more about you. I know kind of what you do. I know how you do it. I may know how much you charge for it. I may know some of the background behind your company. So it's a deeper understanding. And then the last is relevance. So let me tie all of these together. And I made some notes here, so pardon me as I read. So if we have a brand that's relevant, means something to you, does something for you, but it's not different, you can't charge a premium. You can charge what everybody else does. If you have a brand that's different, but not relevant, so maybe you are the only family-owned dealership in town, but nobody cares about your family. You're different, but you're not relevant. You have no customers. I'm different, but nobody cares. Now, a brand that's both relevant and different, they can gain market share and they can charge more money for their product. And so that's why this specialness formula is important. Specialness is something that we can claim immediately. This is something that we can advertise. It's a message that resonates. And we're going to contrast that with the authority that a brand might have, because the authority a brand has must be earned over time. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So as we craft marketing messages and communication, we can talk about what makes us different, why that's relevant, and therefore what makes us special. And those are great messages. Now, I want to jump to authority for just a minute, because, you know, when we think of all the famous brands, whether it's Coca-Cola or Apple or the NFL or those kind of brands, I mean, they have authority in their particular segments. So authority is based on three things typically: trust, leadership, and quality. Let's talk about what those mean in terms of authority. So trust means that consistently you've done what you've said you're going to do. So if let's go back to Coca-Cola, it's that consistency of not only the product, but the messaging. I get the same experience drinking a Coca-Cola in a glass bottle time after time after time. I can buy a Coca-Cola in California or one in New York. They are the same. They keep their promise. It is consistent. Leadership is typically a synonym for innovation. So a leader has a new idea and a better idea over time. A leader doesn't stay stuck in the past. And that's how customers look at leadership. Did you show me a little better way? Did you refresh the message? Did you refresh the way that I enjoy your product? Go back to Coca-Cola. Seems like a small thing, but those little mini cans of Coca-Cola, that's a bit of an innovation in that business. I don't want all of that caffeine. I want something smaller, more compact, more portable. That's seen as an innovation. I look to Coca-Cola to introduce that first. And then the last thing is quality. Quality is easily defined. It meets the specification. So it's not some nebulous thing. This is high quality. This is low quality. Does it meet the specification? And typically we look to consumers to help us write the specification. So trust, leadership, and quality are what give a brand authority. And you can't claim that today. And that's the problem. So many people try to talk about we're the most trustworthy dealer and, you know, we've led the market and we do all of this. Okay, that has to be earned over time. And that's why some of those messages that talk about authority fall flat with consumers. They don't feel quite so believable because when it comes to trust, if you have to say it, it's not so.
Oh,
if you say, you can always trust me, my name is Honest John and I never lie, the only person that says that is the person that's lying. So this is something we earn over time and typically we demonstrate it. So those are two things that affect a brand promise. How special and what kind of authority do you have in the market? So if you take those two things and you add familiarity, which would be our communication and messaging, meaning you tell people about it, you do advertising, you do marketing, you're involved in your community, then you get to a consumer decision point and all customers buy for exactly the same reason. That sounds silly, but they do. Every customer buys for the best perceived value. What am I getting? What am I paying for? And everybody makes that judgment in a very different way. But it's best perceived value. And that's the power of a brand when we bring that authority and specialness with insightful communication. Then perhaps we can demonstrate this is the best perceived value. Not necessarily the least expensive, but for me, the best value. So if a woman is a luxury buyer and has the means, the Birkin bag is the best perceived value, even though it might cost
and we'll wait
$15,000.
5 years on the waiting list for it. Like, doesn't matter.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've already found one person who's said
I
is the best perceived value.
Not me. I have multiple friends that are on the waiting list, and they're like, "Who do we have to call? What do we have to do?" And I go, "Wait, I'm just confused on this." Like, and that's like, give me my Jordans. I have my bags, but it's not a Birkin bag. But I'm just like, oh, wait. So it's a how long of a year waiting list? Oh, it's like 3 to 4 years.
You pay a lot of money for a very small purse.
Yes, and they love them. And I'm like, but once again, it's perceived value. But the women's shopper, shout out Katie Mayers, is just way different mindset than a male. But it's, once again, it's perceived value. You give someone else, and I'm like, Coach outlet, please, thank you very much. So I'll take that. But it's very, to your point, is very, very different perceived value. Yes.
The things that also affect our perceived value are the price and the availability. And you just hit on it with the Birkin bag. The same could be true of many of the car models that are out there right now, is that, of course, scarcity is a great affector of the value of something. Oh, yes. And I suspect they could build some more Birkin bags if their life depended on it. But there is a finite supply that keeps the prestige and the value of that product high. Now, there are other products, of course, where the manufacturer says, that's not the game we play. We want to build as many as we can. Coca-Cola is a good example. Don't want any scarcity of Coca-Colas out there. No.
But I will tell you, Alan, I'm out. Okay, so I don't have it sitting here, but normally depending on what time of day it is, throughout the day, I Diet Dr. Pepper. There was a while there that depending where you were in the United States, there was a Diet Dr. Pepper shortage. And so when I would be on the West Coast, I could not find Diet Dr. Pepper. I was freaking out. I was like, you guys, what are you doing to me? Like, I got to have my Diet Dr. Pepper. Like, so I would go into, and it was usually like on Utah, sometimes California, but like the Utah region. And I go into the cashier and they go, oh yeah, we just can't get it in. I go, how can you not get in Diet Dr. Pepper? This is not like once again, it's not a Birkin bag. It's not a pair of rare Air Jordans. Like, how do you not get in Diet Dr. Pepper? Like, oh, we just can't get it in. What? So I don't know if it was a pent up demand, but I'm like, I can get it fine in Chicago. Why can't you get it out here? But was it a perceived thing? Was it an actual shortage? I honestly don't know. To this day, I don't know what happened. But this was like, for like 6 months, they couldn't get it in. I don't know.
So facts, not feelings, on hiatus until the tragic Diet Dr. Pepper shortage is over. Is that what we're saying?
I don't know. But I was like, I will next time, like anytime I fly, I'm like, can I just take a 12-pack with me? Will that explode on the plane? I don't know. Maybe I'll ship it beforehand. I don't know.
What an interesting little lesson about the power of the Dr. Pepper brand and how you experience that brand and what scarcity does to your perception. Now it's really important to me. I got to find it. I got to buy it. And if you ran into some Diet Dr. Pepper and it was, say, 20% more than you're used to paying, you'd say, I'm lucky to be able to pay that and get it today because it's scarce. So all of these things affecting the value of a product based on the brand promise as well as the scarcity. That was the best perceived value. Dr. Pepper at twice the price, if it's available, would be the best perceived value, even though a Mountain Dew might be half the price.
So I lived in Japan for a year, and at the time I was drinking regular Dr. Pepper, and that did exist. But whenever I was at a McDonald's, obviously, once again, you're getting Coke because Coke is going to be the same wherever you are in the United States, especially at a McDonald's. And so we happen to be in a country, and there's a grocery store type of thing, supermarket, and I walk in, and they have these bottles of Dr. Pepper, and I just go, oh my God, I have to have this. Now, I'd lived there for a year, so it'd probably been 7 months that I hadn't had a Dr. Pepper. And I'd had Coke, whatever. It's great, but it's not Dr. Pepper. And it was no joke. I think I paid $8 a bottle. But I was like, I don't care. Like, I have not had this. So I stocked up on Dr. Pepper. I think I threw down like probably $200 on Dr. Pepper. I still have the little Dr. Peppers to this day, and this was back in 2006. But exactly what you're saying, like especially when you're loyal, and as a female, when you are loyal to a brand, you will pay within your price, but you'll pay just about anything because you are loyal to that brand. So exactly to what you're saying, I paid, it was between $8 and $10 US dollars a bottle. And the bottles were like, they're not like our bottles, they're much smaller bottles. Yeah. So yes.
So let's kind of segue into our rebrand of the podcast, Facts Not Feelings, now serving the soft drink industry.
Where are my royalties, Dr. Pepper? That's all I'd like to know.
Exactly. Let's switch back to cars maybe here a little bit with branding. And, we talked about why virtually every customer purchases that best perceived value as defined by the customer. Let's go to the other side of the equation, what owners want. And I'll be so bold as to say every single dealer in America mostly wants the same thing from their business, and that is sustained profitable growth. They want to grow profitably, and they want to do that over time. And so when we can deliver products and solutions that help dealers do that, it solves all their problems, regardless of whether they're thinking of selling their business, whether they're thinking of operating their business long-term. It's sustained profitable growth. And the key to sustained profitable growth is what is at the end of the brand value chain. So when we take this brand promise, we add familiarity through marketing so that we deliver the best perceived value and we get purchase from a customer. If we meet the expectations that our brand promises, what that equals is the most important thing in retail, which is loyalty. Loyalty is where big profits come from. Loyal customers are less expensive to acquire. They're less price sensitive. They're easier to do business with. And loyalty is at the end of the brand value chain. And that's what leads to sustained profitable growth. I think everybody knows this. If you do a really good job and you have lots of loyal customers, you get to earn a profit from your labors. So brand is a really important chain of events, starting with awareness. I'm familiar with what you do. It goes into the brand promise, what's in the mind of the consumer. When we do that well, we demonstrate that we're special, that we're relevant and different. We demonstrate that we have authority over time because we have quality, we do what we say, we have leadership, we're innovative, we're new and fresh, and we have quality. We meet the specification. As simple as we're going to deliver your car at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The car is ready at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning all the time. That leads to the best perceived value when we have availability of product as well as a market competitive price. That leads to purchase and hopefully loyalty, leads to profitability. So what I wanted to do is not let branding get isolated as some sort of a little cute marketing game where we're going to do a logo and a tagline and put some memes in our email and call it marketing.
It's not that.
That can be part of it. All of those things can be part of it. I put a few memes in emails now and then. But it's really a lot more, and it stems from this brand promise and defining what that means and building a promise that customers will resonate with.
Well, I'm really hoping there's been so much gold that you've just thrown down here, Alan, of such a very much needed topic. Is that too often we do think it's that logo, or it's the Chosky thing that we get, or hey, because I have, and I'll even go back to when I first started the first time I started my business, that I thought I had to have all these different things, and that's not a business. That's not your brand. It's who you are at the soul of who you as a company, and who you are as a human being. And if you can't pass that on, you're an empty house. Is all. I mean, you've forgotten the entire foundation and the architecture of everything in between to make that a home. So I love what you're saying. And as you say, okay, this is our brand, don't forget as well, Stephen Apicella said something, I don't know, it was a couple shows ago, that he made a comment to say, once you know what that mission statement, the brand, whatever you want to call it, is to say, don't hold it to yourself. Because now you said, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're promising. If you hold it to yourself and don't tell the rest of your employees and tell everybody else, how are they supposed to understand the mission and then accomplish it? Let the entire team know, because now everyone's got to be rowing in the same direction to know this is where we're going. Because if you we'll go to the Chick-fil-A's of the world. They're saying, okay,
do they have Diet Dr. Pepper at Chick-fil-A?
Oh, they sure do.
Okay,
they
good.
Sure do.
I'm
they
happy
sure
for
do.
you.
Yes, they do. Actually had it this week. But when they look at it and say, okay, when we hire someone, do you fit into this brand promise? Do you fit into this? We're not going to put square peg, round hole. So whether you're partnering someone, even with myself, when I look at with different clients, are you going to be when my name's attached to someone? That means something. That does mean something, because now that reflects on you. So there's just so much to unpack there. And so there's just so much information you threw down there. And I love everything you're saying about that. You know, it's not just a name. It's not just a logo. It's not just some email you're sending out. It's so all inclusive of everything, and make sure that's disseminated from the top all the way down to the person that's turning off the lights, taking out the garbage, the person. Every single person needs to know what that is, and have it up like every day. Go over what your mission statement is, making sure that people know what it is, and so that that's embodied in them. I can't stress that enough. Can't stress enough.
You know, you brought up something that I think is interesting, because a brand is relevant for a large organization, and as you just stated, and I think you understand really well, for a solopreneur like yourself that's running a small business that's built around one person, their activities, their knowledge, the brand is equally important, and you turn out to be the brand. You are the product. You represent the brand, and it's maybe more of a responsibility when you're a solopreneur, because everything you do, from your podcast to the way you interact, to your communication materials, to the consulting or training you might offer, that's all part of the brand that people have an expectation of. One of the things I thought might be interesting as we talk about this, a brand promise for large organization, multi-store dealer group, a solopreneur like yourself, is to go through just some of the elements we use when we're building a brand promise, some of the criteria we think about. And the first thing we think about, kind of the bottom of the pyramid, are the features. What is it you're going to get? Whether that's automobiles competitively priced, delivered quickly with transparent pricing, whatever it might be. And there are functional benefits to that. That's the stuff we can experience. We can touch it. We can smell it. We can see it, those functional benefits. So those are just the basics. As we move towards the creation of a well-rounded brand promise, we move to some other things. So I have some functional benefits I get: reliable transportation, maybe a prestigious vehicle because of the company that makes it. That's all kind of functional to me. But then there are emotional rewards that are part of a brand. So in automobiles, this is particularly important. If I buy a luxury automobile, a Mercedes-Benz, a Lexus, or whatever, besides those functional benefits, all of the technology, the driving, the handling, durability, the emotional rewards are equally important, because a vehicle like that would demonstrate inside my family, perhaps if I'm the head of the family, one of the providers in the family, that I'm doing a good job for you. I'm fulfilling my role as a caretaker, as a provider. It would say to my public, one, I have good taste. It's important for you to know I have good taste. I am accomplished in my profession. I've achieved some level of success. Those are emotional rewards. We don't always like to talk about those. And so that's one of the key things about understanding why people buy cars. They buy cars, particularly luxury cars, with their heart. That's how they buy. They rationalize the purchase with the functional benefits. I bought the BMW because of the handling and the acceleration, because I love to drive.
No, you didn't.
And I want everybody to know that I'm successful.
And I want everyone to know that I drive a Beaver. So let's be honest.
So we have these emotional rewards we deliver with a brand. We also get in sync with our customers' values. We value similar things. So BMW, say maybe versus Lexus, a BMW buyer, we might be in sync with their values that says, I'm young, I am sporty, maybe I think I'm in good shape, I like great handling, I'm a little more adventuresome. Perhaps a luxury buyer that's buying a Lexus, they might think it's the prestige, it's the luxury lifestyle, the quietness, the great stereo. The car handles fine, but that's not exactly why I bought it. Then there's personality. So
big time.
Personality of a brand, let's go back to our beloved soft drinks. The personality of Mountain Dew, kind of crazy, over-caffeinated, fun-loving, is different than Coca-Cola. I love life. I love refreshment. And so we get in sync with that. So all of those things, from the very basic, what are the features? How do they function? Then we start to get into the emotional rewards, values, personality, and those all build into a sophisticated brand promise that our customers hopefully resonate. And then if we go back to my original quote, when that message comes across both as a message that's factual, functional, as well as emotional, that's how I make those quick decisions that Eric Schmidt talked about. That's how I get through the sewer of all the messages. As I go, if I'm thirsty, this is easy. I get myself, you get a Dr. Diet Pepper. Simple. That brand is already lined up for me. I don't have to wonder what it tastes like, what I'm going to experience. That, of course, leads to the best perceived value, to sales, sustained profitable growth, because luckily for Diet Dr. Pepper, they've achieved brand loyalty with Brooke.
True. Very true. Not only that, is the true story is about like 15 years ago, my cousins weren't drinking Dr. Pepper, and they're like, oh, I was like, oh, and so they had a sip of mine. And they're like, oh, we're not really big on Dr. Pepper. I was like, okay. They took a sip and they're like, oh, this is really good. I was like, try to tell you that. And then like a week later, they're like, damn it, Brooke, you got the whole family hooked on Dr. Pepper. And I was like, sorry. So,
once again, we're going to go through a rebrand, facts versus feelings versus Furniss brand evangelist for Diet Dr. Pepper.
But I'll say on the flip side of that is that we've all been a part of, whether it's overselling or you see someone online or a brand online that preaches X, Y, and Z, and then there's that massive letdown. So how does a brand then recover, or how does a dealership recover when you think that you feel that you have a brand, but really it's the logo, or is we are the family-owned dealership and there really isn't one? So how does that brand recover then?
Yeah, what you're talking about is brand authority. It's earned over time and it's lost very quickly. And so I wish there was an easy answer for this, but let's say that you're a dealership. You're not going to change the brand you sell. You're probably not going to change the vehicle you sell. And so if you're not fulfilling that brand promise, if you lose the authority in the market, you lose the trust, you're not seen as a leader, the product and services you're not offering don't meet the quality specifications of the customer. First of all, you need several things. You need a change of your behavior, change of the way you deliver. You can change your marketing right away because you can claim specialness immediately. You can have a message that differentiated, and you can have a message that is relevant to your consumers. So you can start doing that to herald the actual change of behavior or a change in the way you offer your products and services. But to regain brand authority, that's time. You build trust over time. And so, this can be frustrating if a dealership has had a setback. And I don't want to be too philosophical here, but you can change what you do today. And so you do that over and over and then communicate that. Over time, you recover. It's happened all the time. And there can be some communication strategies that might signal to the market that something has changed and we want you to try us. There can be a way to recraft that brand promise. So somebody says, didn't hear some good things about them, but I like the communication I'm getting from them now. I might be willing to try that. And so you're asking a really important and a hard question, is how do I fix trust fast? You don't, but you can start fixing it today, and you can communicate a different message, and you can have that brand promise as your North Star and say, if our brand promise is to make buying a car, financing a car simple, let's endeavor to do that with our first customer today.
Well, I think the same thing holds true. It does hold true when you see a buy sell go down, and yet the buy sell goes through. It's for a store that had let the whether for many reasons that the consumer was just like, I won't be shopping there again. And so there's that rebuilding of trust over and over and over again from the buyer now to say, we're not them. This is who we are. This is who we are, and this is how we're different. But it's so key that you immediately take the action to say, this is who we are. This is our authority. And make that promise and make it be known, because you are going to have to regain the customer. And we've all mostly, I'm guessing a lot of us have been a part of those buy sales, whether either in the dealership or part of that marketing team or part of that agency, to say, all right, tell us how you are different and you are special. And don't tell me that you have the most inventory. Most likely you don't.
Surprise, surprise. We're a car dealer and we have cars.
You have cars.
Surprise,
good job.
We have cars.
Yes. Oh, awesome. Tell me something and I'll sit with my dealers all the time and just say, okay, but really, how are you different? How do you, we'll coach them on, let's really show how you are different, and not the family owned, not the most inventory, the things that, are so cliche that really don't set you apart, and talk about it.
Brooke, I'll interrupt you because you're on a really important topic here. How are we different? And then we add to that, is that relevant to our customers? And people will ask, how do I know if it's relevant to my customers? Here's how you know. Find your best customers, your loyal, crazy, in love with you customers.
Yeah.
Go to them and ask them,
yeah.
Why are things good here? Why do you keep coming back? What is it you like? They'll tell you what's relevant to them. And newsflash, it'll be mostly the same thing with car dealerships with a few details around. It's the people here are nice to me.
Yeah.
And I like doing business with them. They'll mention other things. I like the fact you got clean bathrooms. I like the fact that your prices are on the windshield of your car. Whatever it is, it almost always revolves back to the people and the processes for taking care of them. But that's how you understand what is relevant, is find those most loyal customers and ask them what they love and why they keep coming back. And they will tell you. Your comments about buy sells, I think, are interesting right now. And for the dealership that may be planning an exit, that's why this brand promise is so important, because it leads to best perceived value and greater sales. That's what leads to loyalty, which leads to sustained profitable growth. That's how you get a multiple. People look at your facility, they look at your heritage, they look at your financial statement and your record of sustained profitable growth. Those are the businesses people want to buy in many cases, and those are the businesses that have the greatest value. So this all comes back around to the brand promise, which helps us create that best perceived value and sales growth.
It is. There's, oh man, I could talk about this for another 7 hours. I'm pretty sure, Alan. But there's so much that goes into this, and I'll go while we talk about 30. There's the authenticity and transparency as well. Is that I'll go back to, this is really fairly early on. The first time, not the first time, I was at Digital Dealer, and Bill Schomburg had seen me. Do you know Bill Schomburg? I don't know if you know Bill.
I don't.
Okay, phenomenal human being. And he had seen me for the first time in person. He'd seen the show, then all digital, and he goes, "You are literally the same person online that you are in person." I go, "Yeah, that's
a fact, Brooke.
Yep.
That's a fact."
And I go, "Yeah, but I go, if anything, I should be better in person than I am, if anything." But that's the thing, is like, if you're, and I say that only is that what your message that you're putting out there, whether it's through direct mail, whether that be online, whether that be whatever you do, that should be authentic. Because what you don't want to have is that someone comes back in, they're like, wait, so you acted like this on TV or on whatever source of medium, and they come in and it's completely different. Or same thing, you put something out there that wasn't true, whether that's price, whether that's a message, whatever, and they come in, you're like, well, that's nothing at all what you said. Your actions don't meet up. The transparency, the authenticity is just not there. You will also lose the customer. It's be better in person.
Yeah, I think that, what you just talked about is important. That's the consistency of your messaging, consistency of your behavior, and the consistency of the way you deliver your product and service. And that leads to that reliability and trust and brand authority. A brand that's schizophrenic, that's all things to all people, or changes with the wind, changes with the situation, changes because one employee says, I think we should kind of do it this way. That inconsistency leads to confusion, and it leads to lack of authority. And that ultimately harms revenue as well as profitability and customer loyalty.
Yeah. And I love that part you just said there. When you are all over the map, or you're the best of all things, you're not the best of all things. Yeah. Like you just, it's impossible to be that. Like, you just can't. And as much as I love Michael Jordan, great basketball player, greatest basketball player, wasn't necessarily great. Yes. Thank you. Not a great baseball player. Now, did he try? Yeah, he did. Kudos to that. But he's not going to go market himself as a baseball player. So you can't be the best of all things. So really hone on
probably okay to be the best basketball player in the world. That's enough. That's enough. And then that's great. Stick with that. Maybe the most successful sports entrepreneur of all time. That's enough.
Yeah, and I'm definitely, speaking of rebranding this show, we could rebrand it as Dr. Pepper and Jordan's, because I, once again, don't know why I'm not sponsored by those two companies. But you also, just knowing where your strengths are and staying with those. Don't, if you are chasing. I had a dealership that said, hey, well, I saw a dealership that they're really into dogs and dogs sell. I go, that's great. Are you pet friendly? Well, we like dogs. Not what I asked. Yeah. So if that's not your direction you're going, what is it you want to focus on? Like, where's your area of strengths? You don't need to be everything to everyone. Like, that's not the point. Like, find what your strength is, ask your customers, and then from there, Godspeed, go with it. So yeah. I hear you, Alan. Alan, this has been fun. I super appreciate it. This is, like I said, if I'm going to bring on another guest, this is. I'm glad that you're my first repeat guest. So I super appreciate this.
I cannot wait, because you've been talking about Michael Jordan. I'm looking forward maybe to next year, to get that third ring, that three-peat, maybe next year. Okay.
Maybe, yes. Let's go for it.
Look, it's so fun to talk to you. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, it's been so much fun. So we do have to go through, as you know, we do have the wonderful, wait for it. We do have the lightning round questions. So I thought
I was going to be able to skip through that. Okay, bring the lightning round on. I'm ready.
All right. So first and foremost, for the audience that is listening right now, you're going to be able to see our good friend Alan's personalized link here right below here. But for the audience that's listening in podcast land, how can they find you?
LinkedIn, under my name. I'm Alan Krutsch. So find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, where I talk about business. I talk about transparency. I talk about modern retailing on LinkedIn. DM me there. On any social media channel, Alan Krutsch, all one word.
And then FUSE Autotech, in that link right there, you're also going to find, apparently that has 2 colons there. I'm not sure why that happened, but it's a Friday. So, but yeah, that will also go to FUSE Autotech as well. Check out FUSE Autotech. Okay, yep. Outside of work, what are you doing for fun?
I'll tell you a very quick story. I live in the same town my son lives in. He's lived there 15 years. I've lived there 5 years. It's Bozeman, Montana. When people would ask my son when he was a little younger, what do you do? He would say, my life is your vacation. So I live in a really wonderful part of the world. I'm 30 minutes either direction from 2 big ski areas. I have a river in behind where I live. I like to fly fish. I like to bike and hike. So I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
So I'm actually not going to ask your favorite vacation spot because I think you live there. So
well, that's the thing. So I've been coming to Montana for many years to ski or fish or hike. And so I've lived there 5 years. And yeah, I mean, I love to go to Hawaii and other places, but I feel pretty lucky being where I am.
Okay. All right. Name of the show is Facts, Not Feelings. So whether it's in your personal life or in business, how are you distinguishing facts from feelings?
Oh, yeah. So that's a good one because I'm fairly emotional, and in spite of my little diatribe here on branding and measuring things, I would give you 2 answers to that. One is data, and the second is collaboration. I don't feel like I have all the answers, and I benefit greatly from a group. And I think sometimes group collaboration with a little input from data is how you get at the truth. I can't divine the truth just by thinking hard. So people around me help me.
Better together, my friend. All right. One question wasn't on here, but I know I've asked these questions before. So we're going to go off book here. No pun intended here. What is your favorite book?
Oh, okay. So, I've got several books that I love. I have several authors I love, but I'll go back to Pulitzer Prize winning author Ernest Hemingway. And the book, a very small book, a novella called The Old Man and the Sea, which is I love Hemingway's writing, the simple declarative sentences. And I love what this book says about not quitting, what it really means to be a man, and what it takes to be a human being, and to continue the struggle and not give up in spite of what you might experience in life. So Old Man and the Sea is a pretty good one.
That is a classic. I have not read that book in a long time. That's a great book. All right, we'll round it out with, what is your favorite car?
Oh, gosh. So here's the thing. I like German cars, and I've been lucky enough to own a couple BMWs and an Audi. My favorite car right now is a Ford Ranger pickup that's kind of jacked up, that's got a rack on it that holds my junk, because I live in Montana, and it's like the perfect car. So if you're a dude in Montana, you've got a Toyota Tacoma or a Ford Ranger, or you got something that's kind of jacked up with big wheels.
So
and I've
true.
never had one of those in my life, but I got one when I came to Montana, and I feel right at home in it. I feel like a local, even though I've only been there a few years.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. So, I since you're now in Montana, do you watch Yellowstone? I got to ask that question.
So, not much.
No, that's a hard no, Brooke.
I have seen it, and it turns out that not too far from my house, there's one of those companies that does wraps on vehicles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove by there the other day, and there was a very fancy helicopter parked there, and they were wrapping the Dutton Ranch logo on it. And I thought, okay, this is completely crazy now. We've filmed in Yellowstone, we've got jet helicopters.
What is going on? Oh my goodness, I love it. Oh man, too much. Well, Alan, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for being with me from the very beginning and then coming back on the show. It has been so much fun and so incredibly insightful, as if I'd expect anything less from you.
That's very kind of you, Blake. And I want you to know that is my goal, three-peat. Next year, 2024, we could three-peat.
I literally went back in some of those episodes. I was like, man, I really need to bring these guests back on because, man, they were such good sports to come on when I literally didn't know what I was doing. So thank you. And everyone, as always, thank you for being a part of this. I know that you guys and gals can listen and watch anywhere, and I appreciate being a part of this. But as always, I always sign off this way: is find a way to serve today, find a way to help your fellow human beings, your neighbors, your coworkers. It can be a kind smile. It can be opening a door for someone, but just find a way to serve today. And with that, everyone, we will see everybody next week.
Cheers.